Welcome to my 3.22 Trials of the Ancestor Boneshatter Juggernaut League Starter build guide. This league we're going to be visiting the hands down best league starter for a melee based character, Boneshatter. Fortunately or unfortunately, the patch notes were a little bland, so we didn't see any changes in the meta. So obviously Boneshatter is, in my opinion, the strongest melee build, so this has been the meta for a very long time, so we're going to be revisiting this build. So the build is extremely strong with very little downsides. First off, it's extremely cheap. I've completed just short of all content, fairly comfortable for melee with this build, and it has like very little investment. You have very fast clear speed, mobility is through the roof. You have insane defense since you're Juggernaut, one of, if not the tankiest Ascendancy, and you have Boneshatter to help stun, so most of the time nothing even attacks you back, so that's really good. Also, this build requires no cluster jewels or uniques, so the gear is very cheap since there's no investment. I will say though, because we do not use a lot of gear, we are a little bit passive hungry, so you will use a good portion of them, like 118 of your passive points, so you won't have a lot of room for passive points. But overall, it is very cheap. So because of how cheap it is, if you want to use this as a farmer, this is great. If you want to continue the build, this is also viable, so you can use it. The most expensive part of the build would be the axe, but down in the POB, I will have a full section on how to craft axe you'll need for pretty much every phase of your league journey. With that said, let's go into how to play this build. So you will generally start off by activating Blood Rage, which will in turn give you increased attack speed and life leech as long as it is up. You also have a chance to gain a frenzy charge, which means you have to be killing as much as possible, but as long as you're killing, you can actively keeping this buff up. As you attack, you will slowly build up Rage. This is due to our Axe Mastery we allocate on our passive tree. Rage will give you attack speed, some attack damage, and move speed. And because of Rage and Blood Rage, this is why we attack fast and move so quickly. More times than not, just hitting mobs will explode them due to the Boneshatter skill, and it completely destroys mobs. But should you face a relatively tough pack or a boss or whatever, you drop your totems and you attack. Now, you shouldn't be afraid to stand still because we do have a few passives that actually is really good for stationary fights, so feel free to stand still. And then if you need a little bit of a boost, we have Berserk on this build. This will increase your size, your move speed, as well as your attack speed, while still giving you some increased damage resistance, so it's a really good gem. But a quick side note, when it comes to Berserk though, if you are using it, it will drain your rage stacks, but things should die long before you run out of rage, so that's the core design of how to play it. With that said, we're going to move on to how we're going to level this build. Now, starting off, you will be leveling with Ground Slam, and we're going to prioritize finding two-handed axes while leveling. Honestly, you're going to be using two-handed axes through and through, but you're going to prioritize it. When we hit level 12, this should be around Act 2, we're going to swap to Sunder and to continue to use axes. And then upon hitting level 28, that's where you're going to swap to Boneshatter. Now, based on your gear, you may or may not have sockets for all the gems that we're going to be talking about here, but I'm going to put them in order for you to kind of look out for it. So, of course, we're going to start with Boneshatter. Next, we want to get melee physical damage, followed by Ruthless support, Fortify support, and then Close Combat support, and then finally Brutality. Again, you may not have the slots for this, so keep that in mind. But overall, what's most important about this build during the leveling is having a high fizz damage axe. So that's the most important. Also, just keep in mind, to sustain this, you will need to follow along in the POB and grab some key passives, because the Boneshatter trauma stacks can actually kill you. And if you feel relatively strong, I would highly recommend you do the labs as quickly as possible. I think you have access to it by like level 30 or something, so you can go do it. But yeah, just keep that in mind. But first, we are going to go over the passive skill tree and give you a brief explanation on what and why we allocate those things. So let's head on over there. Alright, what's up boys? We are on the path of building, and yeah, I'm just going to show you how we path the path of building, at least the important parts. And ignore the left side, we haven't slotted this in, but by the time you see this video, this part will be done as well as the rest of the gear. But let's go into the build. Alright, so we are Marauder, so this is where we start. And we're going to prioritize a few keystone passives, so let's go over it. So first off, you're going to grab all the stuff you see here. Ideally, what we're attempting to aim towards is a few nodes, and it's mainly the nodes in this area. You're probably going to do the reservation a little bit later once you get like some reservation gems. You're not going to use this early. You're going to ideally beeline towards these areas, you want to get this Tribal Fury, and you're going to allocate the one that's non-Val skills, deal one like strikes an additional target. This is really good for clear. This is going to be very useful, and you're going to want to ideally have this before level 30. We're going to move over here and we're going to grab a Call to Arms. You want this as well. This is very important. This is going to be good for your Warcry, and this is going to help again with more clear because you're going to be using Ancestral Call. You want it to come out instantly and just have it up. After we get Call to Arms, we're going to come up here and get Inexorable. This is going to be the only other one that's super important to grab before you swap over to Boneshatter, because it's going to help you whenever you're in those like stand your ground fights, and this is going to give you some extra, you know, resistances and stuff. So really good to have. Physical resistances rather, because it gives you armor and stuff. Over here, this is another one that's kind of important because one of these give pretty good damage, and then this is going to give you the Axe Mastery that gives you rage on hit whenever you're hitting with axes or swords, and this is going to be a very significant damage increase, move speed increase, and all that good stuff that comes with rage. You really want to grab this one as quickly as possible. There's some health and some resistances here. You want Juggernaut because we're Juggernaut. We got to roleplay Juggernaut. Out over here, I like to grab this part here with Armor Mastery, and I get the 20% increased armor per second you've been stationary up to 100%. You don't have to grab this node. I like it because it gives a lot of extra armor, but really nice. Remember, we talked about this. You're going to grab this eventually. Down here, we want to move on and grab the Two-Hand Mastery. So this stuff is really good. You want the increased damage against rare and uniques. That's going to help with damage. And then up here, we do have the other Two-Hand Mastery. I'm not sure when you should prioritize it. All I know is you want to grab these nodes specifically as quickly as possible. But whenever you can always backtrack to these and grab this. Whatever it is, you're passing right by it. If you have the points, you should be able to grab it, but whatever. Most importantly, you're just going to grab the increased armor per red socket and increase evasion per red green socket. So that's what you need. Up here, you don't have to pass up here either. These are like a bunch of extra points you can save. I like the extra rage, and then I like the intimidation. But again, you don't have to put that on there. But this gives you some more extra rage. This gives more attack speed. You have a lot of attack speed with this build, but you know, I like going crazy. So that's going to help you with damage because Juggernaut is slightly worse damage dealer. Not slightly, but a significantly worse damage dealer compared to a Slayer Boneshatterer, but they are like more defensive, so that's the trade-off, right? Over here, we do grab the Hatchet Master. You can get enemies can be destroyed. Yeah, enemies killed by your hits are destroyed. For those of you who are not aware of what it does, whenever you have an enemy like those porcupines that like have those little splinters that come out and do a lot of damage to you, you can use this node and it can it'll destroy it and it won't happen. But you don't have to. It's not that important. If you want Iron Reflexes, this is going to convert your evasion to armor, and then yeah, this mixed so Dex doesn't provide anything to your evasion rating, but you get a lot of extra armor with Jug, so we want armor. And then over here for the totems, we want all these totem nodes. This is going to really help your damage because totems are actually really big damage for this build, so you want to make sure you grab this stuff. Over here, we just pass this way and grab these nodes. I like grabbing the vitality nodes because I like the extra health sustain, and honestly, you're going to need this for mana until you get the craft that reduces the cost on mana. So you may need to use this in the meantime. I like it for the life stuff because it's a little bit of sustain. The Jug is strong. He's so defensive, so it doesn't really matter, but I like it. You can pass it for a little bit of extra. We grab Precise Technique. And then over here we grab the spell suppression stuff, and this is probably going to be closer to the end of your like build because you know, you're not going to be like mapping super early. And yeah, spell suppression is super good. Get the elemental resistances, avoid elemental ailments. That's pretty much it that you need to know about the skill trees. Again, you can cut this part off, you can change some things around, but you still have quite a few points left over. Not quite a few, you have like 8 left over, but still, you know, you have some stuff left over to maybe get a gem or something. I don't know. Either way, modify this build how you want, but just some of these like important things you absolutely need, like the rage and that stuff, but the rest is a little bit more flexible if you want to change it around a little bit. But don't get mad if it doesn't work out well, just saying. Over here for the Juggernaut's passives, You want to grab Undeniable. This is going to give you accuracy rating and attack speed based on your accuracy rating, so this is a really good tool. We get Unstoppable. This is going to give you move speed and can't be stunned. That's the main thing. Not being able to be stunned is really important. Also, your actions can't be modified below the base value, so this is actually really good too. Very defensive nodes, and these are actually really good offensive nodes too. Undeniable is really decent. Down here we get Unbreakable. This is going to give you your body armor to have more armor, and this is why when you see in the PoE gear section, we're going to go for the heaviest armor possible. This is going to give us a lot of extra armor. And then we're going to get the, this gives us like resistances. So the armor is going to go towards our resistance block, and it's going to just help us stay alive. Lastly, we're going to get Untiring, and this is going to just have physical damage being prevented on hits. It helps you just sustain. Again, very defensive, and yeah, really, really good. This is the Juggernaut. You know how it goes. Very defensive class. Alright, we are over on the skill section, and I'm just going to show you the skills. So obviously we're going to go Boneshatter. We want Brutality, Melee Physical Damage, Close Combat Support, Fortify Support, and Ruthless Support. Obviously Brutality is like a level like 30, I think 30 plus gem, as well as Fortify is like 28 or something. So you won't be able to get all of these like in this particular order, but I'm just showing you the ones that you can get. Obviously you also have limitation on links, so we're going to have to play around the links that you have. But this is going to be pretty much what you need for your skills. Over on your aura setup, you're going to get Pride, Determination, War Banner, and then as you can see here, I got 2 gems here, and we got Berserk and Frostblink. Now, some players prefer to have the Frostblink for more mobility, which is really nice as well. You don't necessarily need Berserk, but you can get a Frostblink if you're playing like hardcore. Frostblink may be better to get you out of sticky situations. If you're playing like softcore or you just want more damage over mobility, I like using Berserk, but again, this is just completely up to you, but this is our aura setup. For our totems, we have Ancestral War Chief. This should be Ancestral Protector. We're going to change that in a second. We have multiple totems, so we can have multi-totems, and we have Maim support here. I've used Calling Strike. Not sure how good it is versus Maim. Maim is probably better, but you can use Calling Strike. I like giving you guys options, so that's why we're doing it, but the first 4 is going to be fine. And then for our cast win setup, we're going to have Molten Shell, Vulnerability, and Life Tap. This is going to give you some decent defense. Finally, for our like body armor or weapon, I think this is going to be our body armor setup. It doesn't matter. You only need 1 6 link for the build. We're going to have Arrogance and Precision. This is going to take a portion of your health to give you some extra accuracy. So this is really good, but these two need to be linked together. We have Relief Slam plus faster attack support. This needs to be linked as well. Then we have Ancestral Cry and Blood Rage. Don't need to link them. It's completely fine not linked. So this is a very like low link investment build, and that's the great thing about it. It's very cheap and very easy to link up and everything. So alright, we're on the gear section of the PoE, and I want to bring your attention down here to the resistances. You will notice that we are not capped out on our resistances here. That's because, well, most of the gear that I have filled out is just the important stuff, but there's a lot of room for you to put resistances where they can go. I just kind of wanted to keep it a little bit more open-ended and prioritize the important stuff, so yeah, just keep that in mind. When it comes to the axe, it is very important that we use a Despot axe, so just being aware that you're ideally going to be using a Despot axe no matter what, if you can. For our helmet, we want a evasion armor helmet, so we got a Nightmare Bassinet here, and we're going to get spell suppression. That is important to the build, accuracy rating, increased armor and evasion, and then life. You can squeeze in whatever else you want here, but the chance to suppress is really important, and the life and the accuracy gives more, of course, but those 3 things are most important. Everything else is kind of whatever. For our armor, we want as much armor as possible because we are obviously a Juggernaut and we want to get as much out of our body. Glorious Plate gives the best armor in the game, so that's what we're prioritizing, but we have a plus to armor, have increased armor, and then we have maximum life. Again, resistances can easily fit into this if you need to, so yeah, really good. For our gloves, we want another armor evasion item, so we have Dragon Scale Gauntlets. We want Suppress once again. The rest of these options are kind of whatever, but added Fizz, increased attack speed, maximum life, some lightning resistances for other resistances, and then attacks damage leashed as mana. This can help with mana sustain if you need, but honestly, just the spell suppression is, in my opinion, is the most important. So For our boots, we have move speed, we have maximum life, armor evasion, and spell suppression again. And obviously it's the armor evasion. Again, spell suppression and move speed, the more important things with maybe life afterwards. For our amulet, we put a little bit more resistances on this one, but we went with a turquoise because we want to meet our dex and our intelligence checks, because we actually need quite a bit of it. So, you know, you can always fit in dex in those other spots if you need to, or you can just add, like, craft on them and add it on if you want, whatever. Anyway, we have accuracy rating, the resistances, maximum life, and then ideally, this is probably where you're going to get your like leech des mana. If you don't put it on your tree, this could free up points, whatever, but this is where you could get some extra mana from. Next we have the ring, and again this one is a little bit more flexible. You don't need non-channeling on both. I just kind of put it in for just in case you get whatever you get, and these stats are not mandatory, but you want to look for fizz damage, added fizz to attacks. You want increased attack speed, accuracy rating, maximum life, and then non-channeling skills have -2 total mana costs on one of the rings, and you can craft that fairly easily. And then finally, on our belt, we want to maybe make this a more like resistance focused belt, just to cover our resistances. And just keep in mind, we would ideally want a Stygian Vise, but the POB doesn't let me put a Stygian Vise for some reason. Anyway, we have maximum life, fire res, cold res, lightning res, and fire and cold crafted. Obviously it's very unlikely you get like triple res, but just some options to look out for. I mean, it's not that impossible to get, but you know, you can put those on for resistances, but ideally we're just trying to cover resistances with our belt. All right, onto our flask. We're gonna get a life flask with instant recovery and with corrupting blood and bleed immunity, because you need it for those moments when our health quickly drop. For our other utility flasks, every one of these are going to have, whenever you take a hit, you gain like charges. That's ideal because we're melee, of course. So with this, we want a quartz flask with reduced curse effect. We want a granite flask with increased armor effect. We want a jade flask with increased evasion effect. And we want a quicksilver with increased attack speed during the effect. So very simple, to the point. Whenever we're getting hit, we have these active to give us extra charges, and that's pretty much it. That's all you really want for this build. For our major pantheon, we want to get Lunaris. For our minor pantheons, if you're doing mapping, you may want to go with Relikesh, and if you're going for bossing, you want to do Rathotha. This isn't super important, but that's going to give you a little bit more edge depending on the situation. Alright, there you have it, guys. That is my League starter build for 3.22 League for the Trials of the Ancestor. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it down in the comments, or head over to my Twitch. I'll be live streaming this during the League start. Probably even live streaming this like throughout the week heading up into the League start. So feel free to go ahead and follow me on my Twitch. It'll be up on the screen. And yeah, really hope this build helped you guys out. And I'll see you in the next video very soon. Later, guys.